Hello. That was a little clap intro. Don't know how long that came off on the recording. Welcome to my channel. This is episode 2 of Turtle Talk, where I discuss movie stuff. I'll probably discuss other stuff in the future that's not movie related, especially once this video comes out and maybe next week while I'm still busy catching up with stuff from the Oscars and whatnot. We have a jam-packed agenda today, guys. There's a lot to talk about, including Oscar predictions, including personal Oscar rankings. The Razzie nominations were also announced, so I'm going to get into that. But before we start any of that, make sure you like and subscribe if you're interested in the content that I'm producing. If you like movie stuff, I talk movies a lot, so that should be somewhat interested to you if you are a fan of movies as well. So hopefully I'm interesting enough to where you'll keep following, I suppose. So the first thing I want to talk about is actually none of those things. We're going to begin with a little movie review. There was a wide release film that came out this weekend. Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of Harley Quinn. Don't worry, I'm just going to call it Birds of Prey for short. It's weird on IMDb. They have Birds of Prey as the official title, and then that's below it as like the original title. Yet it's still on literally every poster, every trailer. I know people just call it Birds of Prey just as an offhand like quick way to do it. Either way, so this is the new film from DC that's based on a property. It's basically telling the story of one Harley Quinn who has a falling out with the Joker. They end up breaking up, and now she's trying to make her way in a criminal world where, because she no longer has the Joker's protection, a lot of people kind of want her dead. Other women are introduced into the fold as different characters that have different backgrounds with some of these other characters. Yeah, it's definitely a female driven superhero film, which is really nice. I will say that this movie does do a good job of setting up the power dynamics and how hopeless sometimes it feels, almost having to play second fiddle to what would consider to be a man's world. And I think that there's a lot of interesting stuff that the script does with this. And Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, as always, has been fantastic. She was one of the more solid parts of Suicide Squad, so I think that everyone kind of went in knowing she would give it her all, knowing she would give a great performance, and she definitely does. But what I don't think people actually expected was the fact that every other woman in this film kind of equally has something to do. I think that they were all given a decent amount of screen time, although I will say that the way the stories kind of merge in together could have been a little bit more eased into. There's a lot of times where the editing is constantly flashing back and forth between the past and the present, and it's supposed to kind of add to the style of the film, I believe. I think the intention was that this kind of sporadic, jumping back and forth was kind of be a little bit more. And listen, I understand that you wanted to try to keep people's attention, but I feel like one of the issues that I had with this movie is that the movie is so desperate for your attention that sometimes they just do the most annoying stuff in order to try to get it. Case in point, there's an editing sequence where there's a sped up aspect of it where it's like Harley Quinn's partying, everyone else in the club is essentially partying the same way, but they're all like moving in a higher frame rate. It's almost like it's going fast forward. It's very odd and kind of annoying, and that's what I can say a lot about the editing choices in this movie. It just feels like a movie that's desperate for your attention. And don't get me wrong, like there are a lot of entertaining stuff about like some of the fight scenes. I actually think the climax worked really well. The indoor, I don't want to spoil it, I suppose, but there's a indoor abandoned warehouse of sorts. Not quite like the Batman one. This one's a lot more interesting in terms of visuals, which I also liked about this movie, especially in comparison to like other DC movies, I suppose. The fighting in this movie actually feels real. It feels brutal, and I do think that helps with the film based on its R rating. Most of the movies in this universe have been PG-13, so this is, I think, the first R-rated DCU movie that they're doing. And I think it worked out in terms of popularity, in terms of quality. It seems like people are really liking it. There's just a lot of technical aspects that I just kind of find really annoying. I already mentioned like the editing, but there's also like this kind of weird dour look that the movie has in terms of its cinematography. And I understand you want to try to keep it in a similar style to what Suicide Squad was, or what BVS was, only in terms to try to remain consistent within the universe. But it does make a lot of scenes look a lot more drab and a lot more lifeless than I think they intend to be, because there's a lot of very bright, vibrant colors at certain points in this film. There's a lot of situations like that where you are being bombarded with a lot of crazy visuals, but then there are other times where you're not, and it's just really like dark and gritty. And like the movie's not like gritty and like the, oh, like I'm gonna be like really like tough and sad all the time. This movie obviously has a more lighthearted and fun tone compared to those other movies, but the movies still look the same, which is just weird. Like it's going for a completely different tone from what it was. So if you're gonna do that, you might as well just do whatever you want, like create your own Harley Quinn film, I suppose. I am glad, though, that a good chunk of the producers are females. It has a female director and writer. And so I do kind of hope that this movie does well enough, even if I don't think it's quite like the best movie ever. I do want that to happen, because I want female driven works to be rewarded, and I want them to make their money back, because I want Hollywood to understand that, hey, females can direct movies too. Somebody should have told the Academy that, but whatever. I don't know. Is there really much else to say about Birds of Prey? All the acting was really solid. I will say that the young kid, the girl who, the pickpocket, she's a pickpocket, who has like a cast on her hand. Sometimes her performance can be a little bit cringe. I think you could tell that she's probably the least experienced actor of all of these people. But that doesn't mean she was bad. I thought she was actually fine. There's some like betrayals, I suppose, that don't really work out for me. I'm just like, wow, this movie really just needed an excuse for something to happen. And there's like just so many conveniences as well that, like, if it were to happen in any other movie that's not a superhero movie, I feel like a lot more people would be annoyed by it. But because it's like this DC property, they're like, oh, that was so cool. And don't get me wrong, what happened is cool, but it is also something that just happens for the sake of letting our characters escape a situation that they never should. And it was just so transparent, and I'm like, oh, okay, really? All right. Ewan McGregor, though, I wanna say, he is very cartoony. He is very over the top, but this dude is awesome in this movie. Like, he is having the time of his life. I'm not sure if Ewan McGregor has ever played any type of like villain before, but if he hasn't, he needs to get cast in some stuff, because this dude makes an excellent villain. I'm really impressed with how he was able to kind of have this really wild, like, yeah, let's party attitude, while also being extremely menacing, powerful, and ultimately kind of a sadistic killer. Like, there's this scene where like he has like this family time, and I'm just like, oof, this is pretty brutal. But the thing is like, I will say this also, the R rating could have helped a little more, I think, in terms of like the content they were showing. Now listen, I'm not saying that you had to have like brutal like kills shown to the audience, but there's certain sequences where you can tell that they didn't want to like cross that line, so they just decided, you know what, we're just gonna leave it like that, you know. But it just kind of makes certain scenes a little more obvious as to how fake they are, which is unfortunate because there are some really tense scenes and some like, oh, like this dude is really that crazy type of scenes. The problem is though is that it doesn't really feel like the movie wanted to go 100% into it. Like it's kind of like they had like it was like a 68 to 32 split where they wanted to do it, but like they knew that if they did it people would be upset, so they just like, nah, we're not gonna have something go on like that, you know. I don't know, there's not really much else I can say about Birds of Prey. I think the movie's fine. It's a very fun movie at times. It's very action packed. The performances are all really solid. There's just a lot of stuff that went on in the movie that I wasn't completely on board with. And I will say that it is difficult to make a movie like this because really, a lot of these characters are kind of bad people. Like, there's literally a line where Harley Quinn just says, I guess I'm just a terrible person. Like, that is literally true about most of the characters in this movie. They do illegal stuff, they do brutal stuff, and sometimes in a way where you're wondering why you're even rooting for these people. Like, I get it when they're beating up like bad guys or whatnot, it's all fine and dandy, but then you look at like the track record of people that Harley Quinn has like screwed over the years and all that stuff, and we're supposed to be rooting for Harley Quinn in this story, but I think the problem is that when we're kind of shed light on like the things that she's done to people, it's like, you know, should I even really be rooting for this woman to begin with? And I guess the whole point is that you shouldn't, but it doesn't really come off that way. Like, I find it a little weird that like a film that's so female driven is kind of led by a character who should probably be the least female role model that's ever existed. I don't think anyone should look up to Harley Quinn as a role model, I guess. And I know that because of this movie, there are some people that will. However, being an R-rated, most of those people were probably already Harley Quinn stans to begin with, so hell, what the fuck do I know? I'm just a cis white male who's talking about things I suppose are just out of my pay grade. Either way, I thought the movie was fine. If you're a fan of Harley Quinn, if you've liked these DC movies, I don't see any reason that this movie should be any better or worse than what you've already been exposed to. It's not perfect, and I wouldn't go as far as say that I liked it, but I liked a good chunk of it, and I guess that's more than I can say about some of these DC movies. So I think I'm sticking with like a strong 6 out of 10 and a recommendation. If you guys want to see it, you're more than welcome to. It just opened out in theaters. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about Birds of Prey. Get it, guys? Because I rhymed. That's not a funny thing. Alright, guys. So, we move on. We finally move on. Academy Awards. Now, every year, I have a goal. I do my damnedest to watch every single film nominated at the Academy Awards. That's not just Best Picture, that's every category. All 24 categories. Big chunk of the reason why is really just because I just kind of want to be part of the conversation, you know? Like, I don't want to have to watch the Oscars and then not know what movie that is because I just haven't seen it. So I figured it would be easier if I just try to watch all of them. I've been trying to do this for a while now, every year since like, I don't know, 2015 probably. So I'm going on like 5 straight years of trying to do this. And this is a big deal, guys. You guys might not understand this, but for me personally, this is the first year I've successfully watched every film nominated for an Oscar this year. 53 films were nominated. I have seen 53. Now, keep in mind, a good chunk of those I had seen during the 2019 year. But I would say that there's a lot. Like there's I would say a little less than half I had to watch or catch up on within the last I don't know 5 or 6 weeks or so. So I figured before we get into my official Oscar predictions, I would do a quick rundown of all the movies. Just a quick rankings of sorts. I don't want to spend too much time talking about each of these movies because I feel like I'll talk more about them in their specific categories when I eventually do my predictions. So we're just going to run right through this. I'm going to be ranking all 53 Academy Award nominated films from worst, the one I like the least, to best, the one I like the best, obviously. So at number 53, we have The Lion King. Pretty obvious. Not a good movie. 52, we have Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, another one that I just... Sorry, guys, I didn't like this one. It was not the Star Wars conclusion that I think this trilogy needed. Granted, I don't think this trilogy needed existence either, but yet here we are. I don't know, it just didn't hit me the same. I thought, like, a lot of the beginning of the movie felt kind of moot. It's like the first, like, 90 minutes is just a giant scavenger hunt, and then the rest of the movie is just a ripoff of Return of the Jedi, so I don't know. 51, Breakthrough, nominated for Original Song. It's a faith-based film that I'm not really sure why the song is all that special. Oh wait, Diane Warren is involved. Okay, yeah, she's nominated a lot, so I don't think it really matters whether the movie's good or not. If the song's fine, I guess. 49 is Harriet. Or is that 49? No, that's 50. Oh my gosh. You know, it's crazy because sometimes I feel like you lose count on one of these, it's game over for you. I can't. You're in the end game now. Yeah, I had to groan on that one. So yeah, 50's Harriet, probably the most nothing movie that's been nominated. Like, I can't, like, watching this movie, it was like, I don't know. It was like it went through one ear and out the other. Like, I couldn't care that much about the movie. I think it's because it wasn't really presented all that well. The story's pretty basic and cliched. Obviously, the Harriet Tubman aspect of it, of course, is historically relevant, but I think in terms of how it comes off as the movie, could have done a little better. Let's just say that. Bombshell at 49, a little overrated. I don't really get the performances aspect of this movie. Don't get me wrong, I think Margot Robbie's great. I think Charlize Theron's great. I think everyone in the movie does a really good job. It's just, there's nothing about the movie that really stands out as being all that special to me. And because of that, it just makes me kind of, really? Is this who they really chose to represent, like, actresses? Like, you have Lupita Nyong'o out, you have Awkwafina out, there's a other woman, Jodie Turner-Smith, that probably could have got. You know what? I'm talking about those tops. We'll get to that later. Maleficent, Mistress of Evil at 48. It's not a great movie. I'm kind of surprised it even got this nomination, if I'm being completely honest. But I don't know. I don't think it's that bad either. I'm actually in the minority of people who think it's a little better than the first one. I wasn't really a big fan of the first one, so I don't know. Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, I don't think it's that bad. 47, Judy. Renee Zellweger's great. Production, costumes, makeup and hairstyling, I think are all pretty solid as well. I just don't really understand the movie, like, why people like it. I guess people just kind of like it for Zellweger's performance, but I'm not really feeling this movie. It was a little bit too by the numbers musical biopic for me, and then eventually just kind of became a concert movie. So I don't know. It's fine. It's nothing terrible. Next one, we have a live action short film called A Sister. This one you can't really find online, so I don't know if I should get, like, too into this one, but this one was fine. Once I knew what the premise was going to be and I saw like what they were doing, like I don't know, it wasn't anything too mind blowing, but it was fine. Uh, Brotherhood, another live action short at number 45. Again, very similar feelings. Thought this movie was fine. It had this weird, like, it did this, like, aspect ratio thing, which I didn't really think mattered all that much. I'm not quite sure why that was a decision made, because it didn't really add any different type of intensity or feel to the movie that I don't think would have already existed without that. So, unfortunately, yeah, I don't know. I can't really say much else about that except I didn't really particularly find it. I don't know, all that engaging. I suppose. Next one is Richard Jewell, at number 44. Another movie that I don't know. I just didn't think was all that effective in the story it was trying to tell. I think that a couple of the performances are really strong, but I don't know. This whole idea of what these characters were going through with the whole bombing situation, it felt more to me like the movie definitely was on the side of Richard Jewell, obviously. I think as everyone retroactively should have been because he was the one who found it and stuff, but it felt a lot like Sully, where like it just kind of felt like, oh, this hero has to go against the government because they accuse him of being the one to do this. But it really just by the end, it was like, oh, wait, no, that's not true. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about Richard Jewell. It's fine. It's a fine movie. Very, very fine. We're gonna go to Hair Love at 43, a animated short film. Again, another one I thought was fine. Has a good sentiment. It's a nice, feel-good little short. Animated well. It's just, I don't know, like, I wasn't blown away by it. I didn't have, like, that much of an emotional connection, maybe, so I'm not really sure why this one wasn't particularly sticking with me. At number 42, we have How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, the third and final installment in the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. It's pretty low on my list. I didn't really care for this movie that much. From a visual perspective, it's fantastic. Animation's great. I think the voice acting is also still solid. The action, of course, is really beautiful and really fun to watch. It's just, I don't know, story-wise, I just didn't really find this movie all that engaging, especially in comparison to the first two films. I kind of felt like in this movie, the stakes felt like they went to a high point, but they didn't really. And like, even though I like the climax and all, I don't necessarily feel like I personally got that gratification that an ending to a trilogy like this should have. I don't know. I wasn't really feeling it. Sorry. 41, Run Walk, or Walk Run Cha Cha, I should say. Yeah, this one, again, it's a documentary short film, very lighthearted, I will say. Coincidentally, it's my least favorite of the five, but it's also the one that's like probably the most lighthearted of the five. It's just a nice slice of life doc about a Vietnamese couple from America who likes to dance. I don't know what to say. They just dance. Obviously, they don't just dance, but for the most part, they're dancing. In a lot of the scenes, they are dancing. At number 40, we have Frozen 2. Frozen 2, sequel to Frozen, obviously. Didn't really care for this one all that much either. I thought it was almost good. The animation's fantastic, of course, but I don't know, I just feel like in comparison to the first Frozen, everything about this movie is just significantly weaker. The voice acting's not as strong, the music isn't as strong, the story's not as strong. There's a lot of stuff in the movie that just kind of meanders, and it's weird, but this movie has no real villain. And don't get me wrong, I'm not one of these purists that say every movie needs to have a good guy and bad guy. That doesn't. But especially when you're a Disney animated film who primarily is decent at crafting interesting villains, yeah, there's no one really in this movie. It is definitely a literal sense of like man versus nature, in a very literal sense, I should add. I I don't know. I wasn't really feeling this movie all that much. It's certainly not bad. I mean, it would be a lot lower on the list if I thought it was legit bad. Like, really, just full disclosure, I think in terms of movies being bad, as in I would rate it 4 out of 10 or less, I'd probably only say Lion King and Star Wars hit that 4 out of 10 mark. Well, Lion King's like more of a 3, but either way. Every other movie I've talked so far have been in kind of like the to this was almost good range. So kind of like the 5s and 6s, I suppose. Moving on to 39, which is American Factory, which is the first documentary, at least the feature-length documentary that I have on this list. Yeah, this was the weakest, I think, of the 5. It's basically about American warehouse workers and then Chinese warehouse workers kind of in different areas, different worlds that they're not used to, and eventually the talks of unionizing this warehouse and the fact that the warehouse people were doing everything they could to try to avoid that to happen. Yeah, the problem with this movie, I think, though, is that the subject matter is interesting because it's a specific scenario where you can kind of delve into the whole Chinese versus American argument of workmanship, argument of state of power. You can talk about the unity that these two could have. It's very reflective of our actual like real life scenarios with China, in terms of like America versus China. The problem is though is that a lot of the warehouse issues that they're bringing up in this, they're not. I don't know. They're not issues that are unique to this warehouse. When I think about like what they're actually talking about unionizing and all that stuff, I feel like most other warehouses have basically had these similar issues. So even though you're putting the idea of like, oh, it's different this time because we're having this specific scenario where there are these Chinese workers and these American workers are kind of having to coerce and work together, which is interesting. But the problem is that apart from that, this movie doesn't really have anything else like that's separates it from what any other documentary could be about a warehouse subject like this. So I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to get from this documentary. It's certainly not bad. Like, it's certainly fine. It's just I personally don't think that I got much from watching it. That's just how the cookie crumbles. That's just my honest to God opinion. At number 38, we have a film called The Neighbor's Window, a live-action short film. This is the live-action short film I think I'm mixed on the most. On one hand, I actually think the screenplay for this is very strong. It does have a lot of interesting ideas and different ways of looking at the reflections of things are greener on the other side, from a couple of different perspectives. It's basically about a couple who finds out that a couple across the street from them have their windows wide open, so they just start kind of spying in on them every now and then. You know, I don't know. I don't know why they're doing it. The movie does get into a little bit more emotionally heavy material, and I actually do appreciate the fact that this is going down. I will say, though, that the presentation and performances in this movie are kind of what keep it from being good. Some of the performances are okay. I'm not saying the acting's terrible, but, well, the kids. Yeah, these kids aren't good actors, obviously. But, like, it's a live-action short film. Like, I'm not, like, expecting, like, the greatest acting. But, I don't know, the movie wasn't really presented in any real unique way either. I just kind of feel a little bit meh when I'm like watching it from a visual perspective, but then like a story aspect will kind of grab me and I think, hey, that's an interesting idea, you know? And I feel like this is a film that in a Rear Window type of sense, could have made an interesting like feature, like a shorter feature film. Not saying I need it, and not saying I would even like want it per se, but I think that there's a huge possibility for that. Um, I mean, yeah, that's really all I have to say about the Neighbor's Window. Like I said, not like the worst, but like nothing too special. At number 37, we have a Spanish film called Pain and Glory. This is a film nominated for international feature. I thought this movie was fine. There's a lot of things to like. Antonio Banderas is great. A lot of the performances are really strong. There are some interesting, unique, surreal scenes that are very compelling and interesting to watch. I wouldn't necessarily say any of this movie is particularly memorable. It definitely is a more personal piece to the director. The movie is about a director dealing with depression, dealing with drug addiction, trying to find inspiration to continue his career, which I'm not saying is all applicable to the real life director's life, but obviously there is some inspiration drawn from that. So it's a very personal movie. So maybe that's partly why it didn't really quite hit me the way I think it could have. Maybe it's because I wasn't as engaged as I think I should have been. And again, there are some really great scenes, and there's some really fun moments, some dramatic moments, and even some moments of humor. Like I thought that some of the movie's lines were pretty clever. But I don't know. Wasn't necessarily for me. I think this is the lowest. I think this was the weakest international film I think that I saw. So yeah, it was whatever. What are you gonna do? Um, Number 36 is another documentary called The Cave. This is a documentary about a doctor in Syria who has basically a cave underneath a hospital where they help, transfer people, keep people like safe from like bombing attacks and stuff like that, because Jesus Christ, living in Syria sounds terrible. Look, I'm not opposed to like Syrian based documentaries. My quarrel with it is that because Syria has been such a hot topic these last few years, there have been like countless documentaries that have been made about the situation in Syria, people dealing with it in different ways. And it's very difficult, I think, for those specific movies to be seen out of the edge. In terms of that's one of the things that makes it difficult about those type of movies, though, is not necessarily the subject matter itself, but because you already know so much and you already have an idea of what is going on, it's hard to separate yourself as a Syrian documentary from other Syrian documentaries. And listen, I think The Cave is fine. I think that it has a lot of really intense, pretty dramatic sequences in it. There were even a couple of people who, during the filming, had lost their lives. It's really tragic in some aspects, but I don't really think that the movie, in terms of how it presents these ideas and the scenarios, is that unique from other Syrian documentaries. And because there's just so many of them, like, you have to kind of, I feel that I'm judging them on somewhat of a scale. And I don't know, this documentary was definitely not bad. I definitely had interest in it, but there was a lot of things that I feel like were a little filler. Some things were really great images, but other times I'd feel like, oh, okay, did you need to have this part in the movie? I don't know. And maybe that's on the editor, and obviously I'm sure that they had hundreds of hours of footage to just cipher through, so it couldn't have been an easy job compiling this movie together, but I don't know. Wasn't for me. Not necessarily the best Syrian documentary I've seen, but it is It's fine. Like if you love this movie, more power to you. I cannot take that away from you. Um, Number 35. From this point on, 35 and on, I like all of these movies. I don't want to be like sounding like I'm just hating on all the Oscar nominated films, because honestly, they nominated a lot of good stuff this year. And even if some of the films on the latter portion of the rest of this list aren't as good, there were still movies that I'd recommend. Starting off at number 35, a documentary short film called Learning to Skateboard in a War Zone If You're a Girl. Yes, officially confirmed Afghanistan. And these women not only are teaching young girls how to read and write and do basic, school stuff to go to universities and stuff, but they also teach them to skateboard. This is one of the more lighthearted documentary shorts. There are still some aspects that are still kind of trite and like, hey, you're a woman. In this country, women's places are not the same as men's. So there's definitely a lot of conversation with that. But I actually do think the movie's strength is how lighthearted it manages to be, despite the fact that it's in these little girls are in situations that they can't, it feels helpless for them because they almost feel like they're not allowed to do most things that any person should just be allowed to do. So I do think that the documentary does shed some light on that. But the skateboarding scenes are really fun too. I really appreciate the fact that they're just showing these girls trying to learn how to skateboard, kind of constantly falling and messing up and stuff, but ultimately kind of getting the hang of it and eventually finding their own way. And I think that could also be used symbolically for what is actually going on in these real girls' lives and the treachery that they're going to have to avoid, whether on wheels or not, in order to kind of live and thrive in this type of society. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Like I said, it's not like the most amazing thing ever. I certainly wouldn't say I'd just rewatch it again right now. But it is free on the internet, and so if you haven't seen it, you can just watch it right now if you're trying to do your Oscar catch ups. So, number 34, The Edge of Democracy, a Brazilian documentary about the rise and fall of a Brazilian president. This movie was really interesting. And it got a lot more intense and a lot more engaging, I think, in the latter portion. My biggest issue, I think, with this documentary is that the beginning is a little flat. It was more procedural, I feel, when I was watching it. Like, okay, this movie isn't necessarily that engaging. I thought that's the amount of content that they had for this historical documentary was actually quite interesting. They got a lot of dirt and a lot of stuff, tape recordings, videos, and there's just a lot of interesting ideas of what Brazil is going through in terms of their political status, what they're trying to thrive in their country, the democracy they're trying to reach, and it feels like that slowly but surely that democracy is being taken away from them. So I really appreciate that about this documentary. Like I said, I do feel like the first half, maybe the first 40 minutes probably, are probably the slowest part. It does really pick up, though, I would feel like, towards the end of the movie, and it ends on such a high note that I think it's worth recommending. Number 33 is an animated short film called Sister. Not a sister, but Sister. So Sister basically is just the story of a little boy, or a man, I guess now, reflecting on his relationship with his imaginary sister. And it's a really nice, well-animated film that kind of dives into contemporary issues of China and, their child policy and whatnot, and kind of the idea that it's harder for people to grow up not having people that they love around them besides, their parents. And it kind of delves into the idea of this guy reflecting on whether or not his life would have changed or been any better if a sister had been in the picture. It does come out a little out of nowhere. You don't really know that that's what the whole thing's going towards until about like 6 or 7 minutes in. It's very similar to Hair Love in that way, where you watch this and all of a sudden it just goes to like, oh, okay, so this is just dark now. All right. It's very beautifully animated. There are a lot of really interesting transitions to different objects that kind of have symbolic representation in this character's life. So I really appreciated that about this film. Again, it's lower register, like it's not like you need to see it, but I believe this one is free on YouTube. It's like 11 minutes long, which means that with credits it's like 10 minutes long. So it's not that hard, it's not that long of a sit at all, and I found it pretty engaging. Number 32 is a documentary short called St. Louis Superman. One of the more lighthearted documentaries as well. It's funny. I say that like they're all like really depressing, but in short, two of them were really depressing, and the other ones are okay. St. Louis Superman definitely has depressing aspects of it, but it really is just about a battle rapper turned political representative for his states, who passed a bill that would help the states fight youth crimes in Missouri, I believe. I believe that's where the state, the documentary is taking place. And it's a really fascinating look at how one man can really just make any type of difference as long as they are persistent and they are passionate about an idea. This does have a lot of contemporary race issues and ideas thrown into it. And it never feels like the movie's trying to be preachy, though. It never feels overbearing. It's always from a genuine place. The conversations that he has with people about their situations are real and they feel very authentic. I wouldn't go as far as to say that like this is like a great short. It's more of a slice in this person's life where he's trying to get this set bill passed for a variety of different reasons. And perhaps in a longer form, there could have been more ideas explored. But I do think as a documentary short, it's pretty solid. Unfortunately, this one is not available online. I had to actually go see the Oscar shorts in theaters in order to see this one, which come post-Oscar time is going to be very difficult for anyone to do. So I really hope that they give this movie an opportunity to actually be seen by people. Maybe if it wins the Oscar, they'll just upload it to YouTube for free or something. So hopefully that's the case. But if it's not, hey, what are you really going to do? What can you really do at that point? Number 31 is Little Woman, Greta Gerwig's follow-up to Lady Bird, which I liked. I thought this movie was good. I liked the way that the story went. There's a lot of different perspectives from, obviously, these little women that are going through kind of their lives. And there's this thing that Greta does where she kind of goes back and forth between the past and present to kind of show, like, parallels. The issue is that she has the same actresses playing their, like, younger versions, and sometimes it comes off as a little cringy. I love Florence Pugh. Think she's a great actress. And when she's her normal age, she's fantastic. But when she's trying to act like a kid, I don't know, some of the dialogue just came off as weird and very much kiddish, but not kiddish in a genuine sense. Kiddish in like, you could tell that this is somebody pretending to be a child as opposed to actually being a child. And I think she's supposed to be like 14 years old, but like Florence Pugh still looks the same. So like you just see this like 20s, female pretending to be like a 14-year-old child, and it just comes off as super cringe. But really, I don't know, like, apart from that, there's not a lot of like things I disliked about the movie. I like the characters. I think all the performances are fucking fantastic for the most parts when they're in the modern day setting, I would say. I mean, even some of the actors in like the past were good and stuff. This is the performance that Laura Dern should have been nominated for as opposed to Marriage Story, if you're asking my humble opinion. But yeah, I think the movie's solid. I would say directing-wise, it's definitely an improvement from Lady Bird. But in terms of its story and characters, I might give Lady Bird the edge, so they're almost on the same level for me, I guess. But I mean, I liked this one. So give it a shot. Great costumes and production too. I think that'd probably be, in terms of costumes, it might be my favorite of the year in terms of costumes. Just putting it out there. Another thing I'm putting out there, my number 30 choice, Memorable. Another animated short film that deals with a man kind of going through Alzheimer's. And they do this interesting thing where the animation is kind of representative of that. He kind of is looking at his wife and he's kind of forgetting things about her and forgetting the things that made them them. And you can kind of see her almost fading away, almost like she's paint. And it makes sense because the way that the characters are animated, they're very woody. They're very like scarred almost, but it actually kind of helps with the way that the movie looks. It's a very interesting animated film. I really like how they represented Alzheimer's through that, and they used it in a purposeful way. And again, like I said, there have been other shorts that have done similar topics to this that I have seen, so I'm not saying that this movie is anything particularly unique, but the way it's presented and what it manages to accomplish, I thought was pretty cool. So that's really all I have to say about that. Number 29 is a film called Rocketman. I really liked Rocketman. It's a biopic about Elton John and his life dealing with addiction, dealing with his sexuality, dealing with just a bunch of stuff that your typical rock star deals with, I suppose. But it's good. Taron Egerton is fantastic in it. I think he got snubbed, honestly. I don't... Like, he sang all his own songs. He really brought a lot to this character. And don't get me wrong, I think Rami Malek's great as Freddie Mercury too. But like the fact that he just won his Oscar so easily for that, and then this, like, he just got snubbed, was like, wow, okay, they really didn't care about Rocketman all that much, I suppose. Maybe it was fatigue. Maybe everyone was like, yeah, we shouldn't have nominated Bohemian last year, so we're not going to make that same mistake again. Even though Rocketman is a pretty superior movie, just overall. But I thought this movie was good. It definitely is by the numbers biopic, but it does enough to kind of keep you engaged with the performances, the way the story goes, and the fact that this movie is basically also a musical also really helps too. So big fan of that. Number 28 is an animated short film called Kitbull. This is a really nice, heartwarming short. That's also really clever, smart in the way that it uses its humor, way that it reveals information. I really like the camaraderie factor and the theme of unity and togetherness can get us through our toughest times, and it's hardest to go through that when you're alone. And I really like the themes that they were handling. I really like the way that it's arranged. It's on Disney Plus right now. I saw it free online when I saw it, so it might still be on YouTube, but I can't guarantee that for sure. I know for sure Hair Love is on YouTube, which I believe I already talked about earlier, but either way, good, solid animated short. Pixar, they know what they're doing sometimes. Number 27, Saria, which is a live-action short film about orphan children in Guatemala, I believe, who try to escape from their orphanage. It's fucking sad. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like the ending to this movie was like, wow. Like that's cold. Like that is a cold move. I'm not gonna spoil it, even though this is also one of those that I couldn't find anywhere else. I had to watch. I had to go to the theaters to see this one. So unless it wins, I don't know if there's a chance that it's going to be easily accessible for any of you. But I liked all the performances. I thought that the way the film was presented was really interesting. They had a lot of cool POV shots. The ending is absolutely heart-wrenching. And yeah, I was pretty engaged for the majority of it. Really liked this specific short film. So yeah. Number 26 is Toy Story 4. I like this movie. I don't know if I would say that I'm heads over heels for it as some people are. Listen, imagine like watching a fantastic short 3-season television show. Like, they told all the story they needed to tell after the 3rd season. You got a very nice wrap up conclusion. Everything went fine. And then, I don't know, 10 years later, you get like one reunion, like, special episode where, like, all the people come back. They have a couple new friends with them. They all go on their own adventure together, and you know, you leave having seen all the people that you remembered. It it was good. It was a fun bonus episode of what was a fantastic trilogy. You know, like, there's certainly things to appreciate. Animation's certainly fantastic. I do like all the side characters they introduce. I like the way the story is arranged in terms of its pacing. It doesn't really give you time to worry too much about the themes of the movie a lot, as opposed to the adventure of the movie. And I think that's kind of where this movie falls for me, is that I think that the script isn't the strongest, and I think a lot of people are overhyping how important and impactful the emotions of the script are, because at the end of the day, I just didn't get it. Don't get me wrong, I understand what the movie was saying, I understand the themes. I just don't know if those themes and that message warranted an entire Toy Story 4 sequel. But still, I liked it. I thought it was good. I'll probably never watch it again, though. I might. I could see myself putting it on again if I'm doing like a Toy Story marathon. I definitely would put this. I definitely would rewatch this. But suffice it to say, it's the weakest of all the Toy Story movies. But still solid. Still liked it. Number 25 is a documentary called Honeyland. It's from North Macedonia. It's basically about a beekeeper who is taking care of her sick mother, and eventually has neighbors that move next to her, and they kind of have a little quarrel over the bees. I really like this documentary. I think it takes an interesting concept and really shows it in its full light, shows it in a lot of different areas of this woman's life that probably would have never really been exposed had this documentary never really been made. And it's really interesting. Like, the way the movie is set up, there's no, like, interviews. It's not like you're following her and asking her questions about her life, but rather it's almost like the camera is just a fly on the wall. You know, this camera is just following this girl around, getting bees, taking care of her mom. It's very cinematic in the way that it's presented, in the way that it's paced. You could almost imagine this being an actual movie. And it actually got nominated for International Feature, too, which is, I believe, the first film in history to ever get nominated for both documentary feature and live action. International feature. So that's actually really interesting. I'm really happy that happened for this movie. It's a really solid documentary. It's not like anything too mind-blowing in terms of how it's presented, but I appreciate the cinematic flair that this movie has. You really do feel like you're watching a movie and you're seeing a character's arc and progression, like, through this documentary. And so I really appreciate that. I thought it was a really solid movie. Number 24, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. This is Tom Hanks's first Oscar nomination in 19 years. Well-deserved. He's very good as Mr. Rogers. But I do think the movie itself, though, is a lot better than I anticipated that it would be. It actually does have an interesting, unique style. I really appreciate the production design. Like, not only were they able to match, like, the specifics of the television show that the movie is surrounded by. But not only that, but they have, like, these interesting transitions where, like, they have miniatures, and the miniatures are the same areas that these characters are at. And I thought that was really interesting. So there are cool stylistic choices. I like all the performances. Even Matthew Rhys, who I didn't necessarily expect to impress me this much. He was really good in this movie as the lead like journalist. And that's also something I was worried about. I was worried that this journalist thing was gonna be a little bit overblown, a little bit I don't know, Life of Pi esque. But it turns out that it really wasn't like that at all. I thought that this movie had quite a lot of interesting ideas and things to say, and Mr. Rogers as a character was just so like over the top in real life in terms of how much he genuinely cared about people, about getting people the help they need, getting them through tough times. It's quite insane. And I appreciate that. I think that this movie definitely does a good job of doing that. So yeah, Ford v Ferrari is my number 23 film. Very intense racing movie, very well acted. Editing's fantastic. I love the sound design in this movie. It definitely is like the epitome of, hey, this is just a really solid movie. You know, it does everything it's supposed to do. It's not particularly thought-provoking or like thematically heavy. It's just a really straightforward racing movie that's like, I don't know, 20 minutes too long, but either way, I thought it was solid. Thought it was a very solid movie that I really enjoyed. Number 22 would be Nefta Football Club, which is a live action short film that I really enjoyed. The entire short, I think, is basically just one giant joke. And by the end, once you realize what that punchline is or what it's gonna be, it's quite a sight to see. Let me tell you that it is definitely a sight to see. I really like the performance in this movie. I really like the story that they set up and the climax and what eventually happens. I will say that the humor is really good as well. But there are times where certain extras are looking in cameras, and maybe if they didn't, it wouldn't have bothered me or took me out of the movie. Like, there's this tracking shot on a street where they're riding a scooter, and meanwhile, you just see like 4 or 5 different people, like, literally just look at the camera. Like, wow. You couldn't have just been like, hey guys, don't look at my camera. Although, to be fair, they probably filmed it without, like, I don't know, an idea of any of that stuff. Anyways, it was good. I liked it. Number 21 is Dakara, or Daughter. So Daughter is a animated short film that tells the story of an adult daughter who's dealing with the fact that her dad is passing away, and they kind of had a little rough patch where they didn't have a lot of love for each other, and so it's kind of about them rekindling that love before his passing, and it's a really intimate, very well animated, almost like real looking movie. Like, there's cinematography choices where the camera is really shaky, you hear like running of the footsteps and stuff, and at first it's a little jarring because the motion of it feels a little bit like it's over the top, like it didn't need to be as sporadic as it was. But there are other aspects of the script and like the story that's being told that I think are really effective in the presentation of the movie, because this movie feels real. Like, it feels like you're watching actual characters instead of like little animated, figures. And I really appreciate that this movie managed to make this story feel emotionally resonant, feel the way that it does. And I actually think that of all the animated short films, this is my favorite. I'm kind of rooting for this one to win, although I wouldn't really mind if like Kit Bull or Memorable won. Like, those two are really good too. So I don't know. It's great. Well, okay, maybe not great, but it's a very strong animated film. I believe this one's also free online. I remember finding it somewhere. But so if you're curious, you can watch it. Number 20, In the Absence, which is a documentary short film about a South Korean ferry who toppled over in about, I want to say it was 2000. 14 when this happened, killing hundreds of passengers, most of which school children, and the incompetence and absolute insanity that went on during the process, after the process, and this one's brutal, guys. Like it's really tough to sit there and watch this documentary, kind of knowing what the end result is. It really is something to behold in terms of just kind of catching you off guard. And keep in mind, I'm giving you guys the fair warning about this because I was just kind of sidelined. I didn't know that this is what this is going to be about. So just a fair warning that this documentary, and especially the last one that we talk about, is they're particularly tough watches. But I do feel like this movie gets a little sidetracked sometimes. There's different aspects of the story that, while I still thought were potent, didn't really fit consistently with what they were discussing prior in the documentary. But I guess I appreciate that it's there, and I think maybe if the documentary was longer, they would have had more opportunities to do stuff like that. But as it stands now, I think this is a really solid documentary. I really like the way that a lot of it moves out, and oh my goodness. Excuse me. But yeah, really liked it. Number 19, For Sama, my favorite documentary feature nominated on that list. For Sama is just a really good Syrian-based documentary. It's basically told from the perspective of a mother trying to explain to her child the world that she's going to grow up in, the world that they're in right now, and kind of an idea of what it's like to live in this kind of environment from a very intimate perspective. Like, a lot of it is very handheld, a lot of it is showing really brutal stuff happening to a lot of people, and it's pretty tough. There are a lot of actual footage of tragedies captured on camera, and the amount of just death and disregard for life is palpable, and it's really sad at times. But this movie also has equally uplifting moments, moments of triumph where the mother is in good places, and it's I can't even. It's a tough documentary to watch. I'm just gonna say that, but it's very good. I liked it a lot, and it obviously would be my pick to win the category. Yeah, I mean, there's not really much else I can say. It's a very personal documentary about the daily life of somebody living in that type of environment. Yeah, that's all I got to say. Number 18 is Klaus, an animated film called Klaus. This movie has been gaining a lot of momentum recently in terms of its award chances, and I think that that's warranted. I think that there is a lot of stuff to be happy about in terms of the awards, in terms of where these movies are going to be standing. I really liked it. And rightfully so. I think that this movie is really good. It really takes the Christmas mythos and the ideas that we have of Santa Claus, of where all the stuff gets started, and kind of makes it a completely different fairy tale altogether. And yes, the story is a little bit by the numbers in terms of what happens. The actual sequence of events aren't necessarily unpredictable. You can kind of see where the thing is going just because of the Christmas mythos, because of the formula used in these type of movies. But what I appreciate about this movie most is its animation style. It's 2D drawn animation that is really spectacular a lot of the times. The visuals of this movie look great, and I really think that it really works with the Christmas aesthetic, and the story that they're telling is a really unique take on a story that we've heard a billion times before. Even if what is happening isn't necessarily the most unpredictable, the way by which they use certain items to represent things in Christmas culture and Santa culture, essentially, is kind of insane. And honestly, almost peaking genius level in terms of how they're thinking, hey, how can we reinvent the Christmas story? And I definitely think that they did that. That they had a lot of things going for them. The voice acting is great. I really like some of the sound choices. Yeah, it was just overall a really solid movie. I really enjoyed myself. Number 17 is Avengers Endgame. Again, another movie I really liked. I will admit that I think it's a tad overrated. I don't think it's the best superhero movie ever made or anything. But this certainly is a landmark moment for the Marvel Cinematic Universe and really just of a generation. You know, for the last 10 years, people have been just kind of obsessed with these Marvel movies. And these Marvel movies have really been given a giant push, financially speaking, critically speaking, audience speaking. It seems like a good majority of people are at least somewhat interested in the Marvel Universe. And the Endgame kind of solidified this 10-year drive that this series has really had. It has fantastic visuals. The action scenes are great. All the performances are great. Everyone knows these characters to a T. I do think the story does have some disappointing elements. The first hour is a bit slow, but it's good. It's a good movie. I wouldn't say it's like... I don't think it's like quite the great conclusion that we deserved, but I think it's one of the better ways they could have ended it generally. So I don't know. Number 16 is a French film called Les Miserables. And listen, from this point on, all of these movies are great. 16 through 1, I would give at least an 8 out of 10 or higher, so keep those in mind. I like this movie a lot. It's a gritty crime drama that basically uses the situation in France as a way to kind of... Alright, guys. Number 15 is another French film. 2 French films back to back. Woo! Called I Lost My Body. This is up for Best Animated Feature Film. It is a Netflix movie, and it's really good. It is a really mature, very well animated film that delves into a lot of different type of topics that not a lot of films that have ever been nominated in this category really do. I really like all the voice acting. The score is absolutely enthralling. It's probably one of the best scores of the year. There's not really much else to say about this movie in particular. I don't really want to give too much away. Just know that part of the story is about a sentient severed hand trying to find the body that it became disattached to, and it's really quite heartwarming. The ending might be a bit anticlimactic for some, but the movie's really short. I think the movie's a little less than 80 minutes long. Maybe it's like 85 minutes. Highly recommend it. I think it's very good. It's a great little animated short animated film, and I think that if I had my way, I would love it if perhaps it got more attention in terms of actually winning. But I don't think it will. At best, I think it's like 4th, like in the rankings right now. So that's unfortunate, but it should be liked more, I think. Should be liked more. Number 14 is Marriage Story. What else can I say about Marriage Story? Expertly written. Performances are fantastic. The movie really delves deep into the process of what it's like to get a divorce. I will say some of the aspects of the movie are a little bit underwhelming, personally, in terms of its presentation. And also, I don't know, Laura Dern is supposed to be winning, like, supporting actress, but I just don't get it. It's fine. Like, she's good. It's just, I don't know if this is the performance I would give it to her for. I kind of think she was a little bit better in Lady Bird. Did I say Lady Bird? I meant Little Woman. I am just off today. Yeah, I mean, Marriage Story, what else can you really say? It's great. Number 12, or is it 13? I believe it's 13, actually. Let me double check. Yeah, it's 13. Is a film called The Two Popes, another Netflix film. Yeah, this one I know seems like it's two old white men talk about contemporary issues, the movie, and there are certainly scenes in the film that have that appeal, that have that kind of sentiment. But I think that the movie is a very well acted, well directed story. The screenplay is really interesting. I like how they delve into all of these topics from their different perspectives, and they kind of have conversations about what the future of organized religion should be given a modern day context. Hopkins is the best he's been in years. Jonathan Pryce gives an excellent performance. Like, I'm not here's the thing. I'm not upset that they got nominated. I think I'm just more baffled that they got nominated over other people that I think should have been in the conversation. But we'll get to that when we get to the categories. But all in all, I thought it was just a really great movie. It had a lot of really engaging scenes that were really dramatic. I really like a lot of the dialogue. The fact that they were able to actually produce and design actual sets that mimic the real life locations that some of these, like the Cecil Chapel. Oh my gosh, it looked beautiful. Yeah, there's not really much else I can say. Two Popes, pretty great. Number 12, Life Overtakes Me, a documentary short film. Um, this one's great, guys. Not only is it my favorite documentary short, but of all the shorts nominated this year, all 15 of them, this is my favorite one. This is harrowing. It's basically about three families dealing with children who have resignation syndrome, which basically means that their lives are so stressful that they're reduced to a coma-like state, sometimes for years. Um, it's kind of scary, actually, and all of these are refugees that went to Sweden and are kind of facing deportation and facing these kind of challenges and stuff. And it's a really fascinating disorder. It's a really, well, not really a disorder so much as a syndrome, I guess, but it's a really fascinating idea that they delve into, and the way that the story is told is very intimate, also very heartbreaking at times. There's a lot of times where you're kind of just watching these parents and these guardians having to deal with the consequences of their children being in this state. And it's apparently something that hasn't really happened too often until very recently, like within the last 20 years recently, as far as widespread cases. And especially Sweden apparently has a lot of cases of them. So I don't know. In terms of a story, I think it's really engaging. I think that the reality of the situation is a very empathetic situation. I think it's very easy to watch this and relate to the situations that the parents are going through. I don't know. I think I said situation 3 times in the span of 10 seconds in that sentence. Wow. Great short film though. Really great short film. Definitely worth a watch. It's on Netflix. So there's no excuse. If you don't have Netflix at this point, I don't know. I'm not saying you have to get Netflix, but I don't know. Netflix is kind of a juggernaut at this point. Number 11, Ad Astra. The real Brad Pitt best performance this year. I love him in Hollywood. Don't get me wrong, but I do think he's better in this one, and I think Ad Astra as a whole should have been represented a little bit more. I know it got sound mixing, but come on, visual effects, cinematography, man, that shit was dope. But even still, this is a really great space movie. This movie uses a lot of interesting ideas of fatherhood and regrets, and kind of uses Brad Pitt as a vehicle for redemption almost. And I really appreciate that the movie itself sets up a world that feels real. Yeah, it'd be easy for a sci-fi film like this to just go super sci-fi, right? But they keep it grounded, they keep it realistic, they keep it hey, this is the reality of the situation, you need to get through this. And I really appreciate it. I think that it is a really, really solid exploration of love, of regret, of fear, and I think Brad Pitt balances all that really well. No, most of the other performances are really good. There are some uh, weird moments in the movie though that feel tonally inconsistent. There's a horror scene involving a bamboo. Yeah, that happens, and it's weird. It's just so fucking weird. Like why that was even in the movie to begin with. There's this really weird scene where like some characters pass, and like the way it happens is just so clumsy that I don't really know why it is, especially when the rest of the movie is just so well directed and just kind of well thought out. It just seemed weird. Anyways, love this movie. Think it's really great. Check it out. Number 10. Speaking of Hollywood, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Look, this isn't one of Tarantino's best movies, and after a rewatch, the movie does get a bit slow at times. It's a lot more meditative, but there's a lot to appreciate about this movie. The performances are all fucking great. The production design is incredible, especially also the costume designs. I think the makeup and hairstyling is pretty solid too. There is a lot of technical aspects to appreciate. I just find that the film's a little bit slow. It meanders a lot. It's definitely more of a slice of life film, and in that regard, I think it's probably the least Tarantino movie of all Tarantino movies. But in some ways, it's also the most Tarantino movie. I will say I'm a fan of the climax. I am a fan of the revisionist angle that was taken. Thought it was great. This movie's really solid. Really like it a lot. Not really much else to say. It's good. My number 9 choice is Taika Waititi's Jojo Rabbit. A very funny, very heartbreaking, as well as heartwarming film about a little boy Nazi who discovers a Jew in his house. And what precedes is a tale of tolerance, acceptance, and revelation, I believe. I think that's a good word to use for it. Roman Griffin Davis is so good as this main little kid. Like, I really do think that the child performance in this one are pretty strong. Better than some of the adult performances in some cases. Rebel Wilson's in this movie, and that's weird. She's doing not good stuff. This year has just been rough for Rebel. I feel. So what else can I say? Production design is great. Costume designs are great. They really put you in the war-ridden time of Nazi Germany. Scarlett Johansson is so good. I'm really glad she got that supporting actress nomination. She really was a great motherly figure to this kid, and oh my gosh, the shoes. I can't. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna say the shoes. But once you see the shoes, I'm like, no. But other than that, look, this movie's great. It's funny. It's heartfelt. It's one of the best films of the year. Honestly, I would say my top 10 films on this list would all be in my personal top 20 of the year. So they've done a pretty solid job at nominating stuff that I've personally liked. Even if, half of the Best Picture nominees are movies that I wouldn't have nominated. But, whatever. They've nominated some good stuff. Number 8. Number 8 on the list. Missing Link. This movie's fucking great. I did not expect it to be this good. When I saw the trailers for it, I wasn't impressed. And this is coming from someone who really likes Laika. I like Coraline a lot. I really like Kubo and the Two Strings. They definitely have a unique animated style with this claymation format that we really haven't seen very many other American companies at least really delve that much into. And so I appreciate Laika for that. But the trailers didn't do anything for me, and I was really worried that this was just going to end up being just a generic, animated kids movie. And in some regards it is. There are childish moments of humor. The story is pretty predictable and by the numbers, so it's not to say that, any kid couldn't see what's gonna happen coming. But I have to admit, this movie is a lot better than I anticipated it would be. In fact, I would say it's my favorite animated feature of the year. The movie is surprisingly really clever and funny in terms of its dialogue. A lot of the humor is kind of comes off as awkward humor, but I think that it's endearing and it works because these characters are very well realized. The voice acting is all top notch, especially from Zach Galifianakis, who I feel like people are not giving enough credit in terms of the actual vocal performance, because he's not just playing another version of himself. I think that he's really drawing a character as a mold for this movie. The production design is actually quite strong in this one. I really like a lot of the locations, the way everything looks. Obviously, the animation's fantastic. That's a given. Usually, with there's never an issue with the animation. Yeah, I really was a huge fan of a lot of the choices made. The sound editing is really great. There's a lot of love given to the sounds in this film. Certain characters will be in environments that feel appropriate for the vocal patterns and the echo-ness of what was being recorded, and I appreciate that. And finally, the movie's somewhat more violent than I anticipated. Not to say that the movie is uber violent, but it certainly is a lot more action heavy than I gave the movie credit for originally. Yeah, it's great. I mean, I don't know what else to say. What do you want me to say? It's great. Number 7. My number 7 choice for my favorite films nominated this year is a film called 1917. This is a really good war movie. Its gimmick is that it's all in one shot, kind of. There are certain sequences that aren't, but you'll figure that out when you watch the movie. It's what else can I say? There's a lot of things that have been said about 1917. The one shot gimmick thing really made the movie, I think, work. The thing is, though, is that apart from this gimmick, there's not really a lot going on story-wise, and I think that's my biggest issue with the movie, and really what keeps it from being in my top 10 of the year, is that even though I appreciate the production, I appreciate the costumes, I appreciate the makeup and hairstyling, the action sequences that are involved in this movie, the tension that is riding within these characters at all times, constantly. The cinematography, of course, is fantastic. The performances by the two main actors are really strong. I just don't care that much, and I think that's the problem. The characters aren't really that developed, and it's more of like you're just kind of watching two soldiers go through war and go on this crazy, massively crazy task, and you don't really know how it's going to work out. And there are certainly a lot of scenes that are keeping you on the edge of your seat, even if it's only been done for the most part in one take. There's some beautiful framing here. There's a night sequence that's really great. It's just, I don't know, the characters are just kind of bland, and the story is just a basic war movie that just happens to be done in mostly one shot. And yeah, even if there are some places where the shot cuts are obvious, that stuff doesn't bother me. Obviously, there needs to be cuts. So, the vast majority of people watching it aren't even gonna know. So, just because I know doesn't mean I'm gonna give the movie less points. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. I think it's a great movie. Number 6 is Joker. Yeah, Joker's, again, I really loved this movie when I first watched it. Upon a repeat viewings, it's not quite as strong. I would still say that it's a great movie, though, especially because Joaquin Phoenix is Joaquin Phoenix, and he essentially carries this entire film on his back. The entire movie is him. And I appreciate that. I think that he is a fantastic actor. This is one of my favorite performances of the year, and I hope to God he wins the Oscar. He's won everything up until this point, and I don't think he's not winning, but like I just want to see it happen. But yeah, cinematography's great. The score is maybe my favorite of the year. It's really incredible. I really love a lot of the directions that the movie goes. Joaquin really adds a sense of kind of isolation and psychoticness to this character that I think was necessary. Yeah, the movie is a little bit derivative of things like Taxi Driver or King of Comedy or stuff like that, but honestly, I don't necessarily mind that. I haven't really had an issue so long as the presentation of the movie is what really makes it like work. And yeah, I thought that this movie was really, really solid, really well made. Did Todd Phillips deserve a Best Director nomination? I don't know. Did it need to be in costume design? I don't know. I certainly know it didn't need to be in either of the sound categories. But I don't know. It's a great movie. I really liked it. Number five. We're in the top five, guys. Is Parasite. Parasite is my fifth choice. I really like this movie. I think Parasites is a really great exploration in economic downfall, in family turmoil, but also in hope and like idealized visions of your future and the future you have for the ones you love. The production design of this house is super underrated and really well done and well crafted. The performances are all fantastic. The story constantly keeps you engaged. There are moments that are shocking. You have no idea that they're coming. And I really like that about this movie because you never really know what's going to happen. And even though, admittedly, the final climax sequence was a bit much for me. I didn't think that it quite worked. I think that the rest of the film is still a masterclass in storytelling and presentation. This movie it's just great all around. I don't know very many people who don't like this movie. So yeah, it's great. It's a great film. Number four though. Yeah, you might be surprised. This is probably the most surprising one. I did not expect to put that this high. Number four is a Polish film called Corpus Christi, which was up for international feature film. This this movie's great. This movie's really, really great. The premise is basically a reformed addict slash criminal moves to a small town, and through a series of events kind of ends up becoming the town's priest. And this town just might have a secret that occurred during a tragedy in the past that could get people talking. It's a really great movie. The performances are off the charts incredible in this movie. The cinematography is very slush, very nice. The framing is really cool. There are a lot of interesting one-shot takes that are really just gripping with grit and seriousness. I really did like the way that the story developed this character who is trying to better himself and trying to be in a position to better others, even though he technically shouldn't be in the position he's in. It really just makes the movie all that much more engaging, all that much more entertaining. I really appreciate a lot of the stuff that was done, and there's not a lot. I don't know. There's not a lot more I can really say. It's a really great, grounded, fantastically acted character piece. And not a lot of movies I think this year have really like hit me the way this movie has. And even to this day, I mean, I have to see it a second time, but it's hard for me to even think of flaws in the movie. Maybe there's a few scenes that were a little bit long. Maybe there's a sex scene that was a bit unnecessary, but like, I don't know, these seem like really small nitpicks in relation to what the story accomplishes, what the presentation of the movie engrosses you with. So yeah, I think this is a fucking great, great movie, and I'm really surprised that I put it this high on my list. Number three, Martin Scorsese's The Irishman. Of course, what else can I say about The Irishman? Everything's great. There's just nothing that's not great about this movie except for the visuals. The visuals are the only thing that keep this movie from being another blockbuster masterpiece for Scorsese, because the acting is off the charts, the production, the cinematography, the editing. I know people complain that it's too long. I don't think it's too long. There's long scenes, but the scenes, everything has a purpose. I think its length is totally justified. I don't know. It's a great movie. Great movie. Number two, my second favorite that's been nominated this year, is Rian Johnson's Knives Out. Anyone who knows me personally knows that I am a huge sucker for murder mysteries. I love a good mystery. I'm a huge fan of Clue. So when I found out that Rian Johnson was returning after The Last Jedi with a murder mystery film, I was ecstatic from the get go, and it just solidified like Rian Johnson as a class storyteller right now. This is his best film to date. The twists in this movie are unique, kind of out of nowhere, and not twisty in the way you'd imagine a traditional murder mystery would be. I hate to use this phrase, but there are certainly aspects of the film that have subverted the expectations of what your traditional murder mystery would be. But I think that it's very well utilized and very well attempted in this movie, because there's a lot of characters in this movie. Some characters don't get as much time as others, but the fact of the matter is these people are so well realized. These actors know exactly what they're doing. Everyone is just having an absolute blast with this movie. This is maybe my favorite ensemble of the year in terms of just overall performances. Everyone is like just working on top level in this movie. And I really like the way that the story unfolds. I really like the production design. I think the movie is a nice looking film. I will say the sound editing is the only thing that kind of irks me a little bit. There are definitely times where you can tell that certain lines were ADR'd or didn't really quite match with like the lips, so there's occasional dubbing issues, which would fall under the editing section rather than the mixing section. I believe, at least. I don't know. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But the fact of the matter is, Knives Out is a really great murder mystery that I love. It's not only is it my second favorite of the year, I would even say that this is my favorite screenplay of the year, period. I know Johnson has literally no chance. We'll get to that. Jesus, we're one movie away. This thing's already over 2 hours, I believe. Maybe it's actually no, it's probably like an hour 40. Oh, geez, and we still got the Oscar predictions to do. Hoo boy. Yeah, but Knives Out, great. Number one, my number one favorite film nominated for Oscars this year. If you guys have been keeping track, there's only one film that I haven't talked about yet, and that's The Lighthouse. This movie is just Robert Eggers was just on a whole nother level than most directors this year. Like, he crafted a film that, look, admittedly is not the most accessible movie, is not the most coherent movie, and can be seen as pretentious at times, but I don't know if I would agree with that, only because the movie never feels like it's above you. Like, the movie's not above like a fart joke. You know, like, it has this idea about it, this, like, uniqueness that I don't know if I've seen in very many other movies this year. The story is engaging as all hell. The dialogue is really unique and accurate to the times, and Dafoe and... oh my gosh. Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, I think, give maybe their best performances of their careers in this movie. They are excellent. They have incredible chemistry with each other. There are so many really loud, obnoxious scenes, but there are also really quiet and more subtle variations of set scenes. Everything about this movie, from its production design, its sound design, the Editing is tight. It never feels boring. Maybe the only thing is that I didn't particularly find the humor all that funny, and there was a lot of attempts at it, and not many of them landed for me. So maybe that's the only thing that I would say isn't that great about the movie. But all in all, I'm really glad I got a cinematography nomination. I was very scared it was just gonna get snubbed completely. So at least I got that. But I don't know. In terms of what else I feel about the movie, there's not really much else to say. I think The Lighthouse is a masterclass work. Robert Eggers is I'm so excited. I believe he's doing a Dracula film with Robert Pattinson. So if that is indeed the case, who knows? Maybe that could be their voyeur into Oscar talks. Who knows though? Yeah, that's it. We have arrived at that time. I have discussed Birds of Prey. I've discussed my Oscar rankings. And now, the big kahuna. Oscar predictions. This year's weird. There are certain categories that are super easy to predict, I think. But there are other categories that I really have no idea. Like, even till now, I have no idea. So, we're just going to get right into it. For each category, I'm basically just going to go into what I think will win, what I think should win, maybe some extra nominees that could have made it in. You know the drill. You know how some of these predictions things work. I will be diving to all 24 categories because I have seen every film, so might as well, right? So we're going to begin with Best Visual Effects. Nominees include Avengers Endgame, The Irishman, The Lion King, 1917, and Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, or Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, whatever you want to call it. So in terms of what I would want to win, I guess I would want to say Avengers. In terms of ranking these, like, for visuals, it'd probably go Irishman last, 1917, Star Wars, The Lion King, and Avengers Endgame. And if I'm being honest, I actually think... I'm going to predict Avengers Endgame to win. I'm locking that in. So here's the thing. I know a lot of people are going 1917 or Irishman, and I think those two are the smarter choices. But something about this year, I just have this feeling that they're gonna want to give Avengers Endgame this award. And maybe they don't. I mean, look, history is not on my side here. They have never awarded a Marvel film anything ever. So I don't know. Maybe they just don't. I mean, okay, apart from Black Panther, obviously, but like, I mean, they've never, apart from Black Panther, awarded any Marvel film like anything. But I do think that with the Black Panther left for last year in the technical categories, there's potential that maybe some of those same voters might still vote Endgame in a visual effects category, knowing that it's never won in this category, knowing that it's the culmination of 10 years worth of cinematic storytelling. I don't know. I think it definitely could squeak by for that win. And with 1917, The Irishman, perhaps splitting some of those votes in terms of those two favorites to win. I don't know. I think Endgame definitely has a shot. As far as what should have been nominated, Ad Astra, Lethal Battle Angel, those are some things that come to mind as far as visuals go. Yeah. I think that's about it as far as that's concerned. Best Film Editing. For nominations, we got Ford v Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, and Parasite. In terms of preferences, I'd probably go Joker 5, Irishman 4, Jojo Rabbit 3. No, I'm going to go Jojo Rabbit 4, actually. So I'm going to go Joker 5, Jojo Rabbit 4, Irishman 3, Parasite 2, Ford v Ferrari 1. In terms of my personal preferences to win, I actually think Ford v Ferrari will take it as well. I know a lot of people think it might go to Parasite, but Ford v Ferrari did win BAFTA. BAFTA has been really good at predicting editing winners. I believe they did pick Hacksaw Ridge. I believe they picked Dunkirk. I believe they picked Bohemian Rhapsody, all of which the last 3 years have gone on to win from their respective categories. So Yeah, I have the feeling that I think they're going to give it to Ford v Ferrari at the Oscars. You know, when in doubt, go for the movie that has the most edits. So that's the thing that I think is going to happen with this. As far as who should have been nominated, oh Jesus, there's so many movies, so many movies. Uncut Gems, that's the only one I'll bring up here. You could have taken Joker out, put Uncut Gems in there, but I don't know. Yeah, you know the deal. Costume design. We got Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Woman, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Personal preference wise, Joker 5, Irishman 4, Jojo Rabbit 3, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood 2, and Little Woman 1. That's probably my pick for costume design, as well as my prediction. I think Little Woman will probably win. Like I said, when in doubt, go with the movie that has the most costumes. And Little Woman, and even though I personally think it's the best costumes of the year currently, it certainly has the most costumes. So I think that that's probably an easy pick for costume design. Makeup and hairstyling. Oh, well, costume design, what else could have been nominated? I don't know. Portrait of a Lady on Fire, that's one that comes to mind. That could have easily been there. But, yeah. That's it for costume design. Best makeup and hairstyling. We have Bombshell, Joker, Judy, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, and 1917. In terms of preference... all of these are good. I'm just gonna say that right now. I think all of these are good. I just don't know. All right, I'm gonna go Maleficent, Mistress of Evil 5, Judy 4, Joker 3, 1917 2. Actually, no. I'm gonna go Bombshell 3, Joker 2, 1917 number 1. That would be my personal pick in terms of makeup and hairstyling. I mean, the fact that Irishman wasn't nominated here, Irishman would definitely be my pick if it were nominated. But as far as what's nominated, I would definitely go 1917 for makeup and hairstyling. In terms of who will win, I think it's going to go to Bombshell. I do think Irishman should have been nominated. There's other movies too, like I think The Lighthouse probably could have been nominated in this category, but yeah, you know, whatever, you know, what are you really gonna do? Speaking of The Lighthouse, we're going to best cinematography. We got Irishman, Joker, Lighthouse, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. In terms of preference, I'd go Irishman, Once Upon a Time, Joker, 1917, The Lighthouse, my number 1 best cinematography of the year, guys. It really is. I know that 1917 had the one shot aspect to it, but I don't know. In terms of difficulty, in terms of style, I think that Lighthouse has a little slight edge over it. But 1917 is going to win this. There's no way that I don't think Deakins walks out without a second Oscar. What could have been nominated? Oh, I don't know. Ad Astra could have been nominated. Portrait of a Lady on Fire could have been nominated. There's the Corpus Christi for cinematography. I wouldn't have minded that. Yeah, so there's some options. Best production design. We got The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. As far as my personal rankings for this, this one's tough. All of these are good production designs. I'm going to go Irishman 5, Jojo 4, 1917 3, Parasite 2, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood 1. That would be my personal pick for production design, not just in this category. I honestly think it'd probably be my personal for the year as well. And I think it'll win. I think it'll win production design. I have this feeling that it is a very Hollywood-loved movie. There's a lot of Hollywood-isms in it, and I think that the older Academy is just going to eat all that stuff up. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, Hollywood used to look like this. Hollywood used to be this. Oh my gosh, they replicated it perfectly, you know? So that's kind of my philosophy as far as who I think is actually going to make an impact in terms of the production design award. Who could have been nominated? Lighthouse, Knives Out, I don't know. Every other one was pretty well represented, I think. Best sound mixing. We got Ad Astra, Ford v Ferrari, Joker, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. All right. Preference-wise, Joker last, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 1917, Ad Astra, Ford v Ferrari. I think that those are the rankings I would go for. Ford v Ferrari has fantastic sound mixing. However, I think I'm going to go 1917 in terms of my prediction for sound mixing. It's won all the sound awards. I have spoilers for sound editing. I think I'm going to go the same way. Except in sound editing, instead of Ad Astra, they replaced it with Rise of Skywalker. So I think my rankings would pretty much stay the same. Except I'd change a couple things, actually. I'd still beat Joker at 5, Once Upon a Time at 4, Rise of Skywalker at 3. Then for editing, I'd put Ford v Ferrari 2, 1917 number 1. In terms of my personal preference, I would mix the sound editing and mixing for that. I think it's warranted in that way. But I do think 1917 will win this category, so I have it winning both sounds. I think 1917 is going to have a pretty strong day in the tech categories. Yeah, best original song, I Can't Let You Throw Yourself Away from Toy Story 4. I'm Gonna Love Me Again from Rocket Man. I'm Standing With You from Breakthrough. Into the Unknown from Frozen 2. And Stand Up for Harriet. Look, in terms of films that could win, there's only really one option, I think. In terms of my personal preference, I don't know. I mean, Standing With You from Breakthrough was like a nothing of a song. Like literally, I couldn't even tell you any lyrics from it. Like I've heard it. I just don't care. That's probably my 5. Okay, so as far as my personal preferences in this category, my number 5 would be Rise of Skywalker. Probably my number 4 would be Marriage Story. I think my number 3 would be Little Woman. Number 2 would be 1917, and my number 1 favorite score would be Joker. This is probably my favorite score of the year. I Lost My Body's pretty close behind, but this one's up there. And I would give it the win in this category. Prediction-wise as well, I predict it to win. I do really think that this is an opportunity to award Joker something outside of actor, because apart from this and actor, I don't think I have it winning anything else. Spoilers. But so yeah, I feel like they will award it somewhere outside of it. So I definitely think that Joker, as the most nominated film, will at least get 2 awards. Let's go to Best Animated Short Film. We got Daughter, Hair Love, Kit Bull, Memorable, Sister. In terms of preference, I would probably go Hair Love, Sister, Memorable, Kit Bull, Daughter. Those are probably my personal rankings in terms of the 5 that I would go for. I think Daughter's the one that should win. I guess I'm predicting Hair Love to win. I've been hearing the most about Hair Love in terms of it winning, and because it was the first short to come out, it was free when it was released, so people were watching it on YouTube. So there's a lot of evidence to suggest that this would be the case, but I don't know. I don't really have any idea what's going to win this category. The shorts are always the most difficult to predict. So I'm going Hair Love, but it could be any of these. Best live action short film. Oh, you know what I realized? I wasn't putting possible sound or production stuff. For the sound categories, you could have put Uncut Gems there. You could have put Missing Link. Could have put Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Song, I don't know. Score. I don't know, Lighthouse had a pretty killer score. So did Uncut Gems. There's a lot of top-heavy nominations, I suppose. The shorts, I don't really have a lot. Although animated short, I do think Girl in the Hallway should have been up there. If you've never seen Girl in the Hallway, fantastic animated short. My favorite short film of the year. It actually does crack my top 20 of the year, just generally. So, highly recommend that short. As far as live action short, we got Brotherhood, Nefta Football Club, The Neighbor's Window, Saria, and A Sister. I'd probably put A Sister 5, Brotherhood 4, Neighbor's Window 3, Nefta Football Club 2, and then Saria 1. I guess that's what I would put. I think Sorry is probably the strongest of all of those live action short films. Well, actually, no. I'm gonna put Nefta Football Club at number one. I think because what really takes it for me is just kind of the whole coming in full circle, kind of but end of the joke type thing, and I thought that it was really clever. I predict that. What can you predict in this category? I see people picking Brotherhood, but again, with these live action, with these short categories, you never really know. At the end of the day, I really just think it's going to come down to they're going to watch all of them and whatever they like, they like. So, my personal choice would be Nefta Football Club. I suppose I would give it to The Neighbor's Window. Only because Marshall Curry is actually a 3-time Academy Award nominee for documentary shorts. He's been nominated in 3 separate occasions in that category. So I think this is his 4th total. So I don't know. Maybe that might factor in. Maybe they'll try to give it to him, but I don't know. I can't be for sure that that's going to be the case. But I guess that's what I'm predicting. We'll see if it happens. Best documentary short film. We have In the Absence, Learning to Skateboard in a War Zone If You're a Girl, Life Overtakes Me, St. Louis Superman, Walk, Run, Cha-Cha. Order of preference, Walk, Run, Cha-Cha, number 5. Learning to Skateboard in a War Zone If You're a Girl, number 4. St. Louis Superman, number 3. In the Absence, number 2. And Life Overtakes Me, number 1. I've already talked about Life Overtakes Me, my favorite short nominated this year. As far as who's going to win, though, I think it's going to be Learning to Skateboard in a War Zone If You're a Girl. It won Best Short at Tribeca Film Festival. It also won the BAFTA for Best British Short. So I think that win is going to give it a lot more attention. And in terms of these 5, I think it's going to get the only type of attention that I think would be necessary to win. But again, you just never know. Sometimes they give this award to things that you wouldn't expect. So I'm going Learning to Skateboard in a War Zone. I think that's a safe bet, but who knows? Best documentary feature. We got American Factory, The Cave, Edge of Democracy, For Sama, Honeyland. So I'm going to put American Factory at 5, The Cave at 4, Edge of Democracy at 3, Honeyland 2, and For Sama at 1. I think For Sama actually does have quite a good chance to win this category, but I think I'm going to go with American Factory. Even though it's my least favorite of the 5, I think it's the one that's getting the most buzz. It was produced by the Obamas, so even though they're not going to be at the... So even though they're not going to be at the actual Oscars themselves, the fact that it is produced by them does give it a little bit of a edge, I think. People are going to hear, oh, the Obamas had something to do with it? Well, maybe we'll just vote for that instead. Like, I don't know exactly how many of the documentary branch is going to be watching these shorts. I hope they watch them all, obviously, but... you know, what can you really do? So, personal preference, definitely For Salmon. I think that's probably number 2. But American Factory is probably going to get the win. Then we move on to probably the easiest category of the night. International feature. Corpus Christi, Honeyland, Les Miserables, Pain and Glory, Parasite. It's Parasite. Parasite is going to win. There's no doubt about it in my mind. Although, rank-wise... let's see, I'd probably put Pain and Glory, Honeyland, Les Miserables, Parasite, Corpus Christi. I would love if Corpus Christi pulled off, like, the most insane upset you could ever think of. But, yeah, I don't think there's any way. Parasite's nominated in picture. There's no reason they wouldn't give it international feature. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. It's going to Parasite for sure. Best animated feature film. We got How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, I Lost My Body, Klaus, Missing Link, Toy Story 4. In order of preference, How to Train My Dragon at 5, Toy Story 4 at 4. Klaus at number 3, I Lost My Body number 2, Missing Link number 1. Was so excited when Missing Link went or went when Missing Link won the Golden Globes, because it's the only major award show that's given Missing Link the award, which I'm very happy about. So I'm hoping that maybe Missing Link could be a surprise, like out of nowhere win, but I don't know. I've been on Toy Story 4 for so long, but the way the Klaus has been coming in, Klaus winning the Annie Awards, which, okay, that's not necessarily weird. They usually don't go Pixar all that often, but then it wins BAFTA. And with the Frozen 2 snub in animated feature, a lot of people were thinking, oh, this is going to be an easy win for Toy Story 4, but in a weird way, I actually think that it might have hurt it, because maybe that showed that the Academy wasn't as high on Disney this year. And they don't usually award Pixar shorts or even any Disney sequel is what I meant to say, unless you're considering Toy Story 3. That was the only time I believe that they've given a sequel best animated feature. I could be wrong. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I'm fairly certain. I can't remember a sequel ever winning animated feature besides Toy Story 3. So maybe I'm incorrect on that, but the fact of the matter is I think Klaus just has too much momentum right now. I think that right now people are loving Klaus. Even people who aren't even in the Academy have seen it. Like, I saw it with my mom for a Christmas thing. That was really fun. So, I think it's getting the momentum at the right time. And with Spider-Man winning last year, I think people just had this assumption that, oh, it's just a one and done thing. Disney will be back to its winning ways next year. And I don't know. It seems like it might not be the case this year. But I mean, if Toy Story 4 won, obviously I wouldn't be like shocked. Like that. That's very likely to happen. Best animated. We already did that. All right, guys, we're in the top 8 now. Final categories here, starting with adapted screenplay. We got Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, Two Popes. In terms of preference, I think I'd go Two Popes, Joker, Little Women, Jojo, Irishman, from 5 to 1 respectively. I think The Irishman is probably the best in this category in terms of screenplay, but in terms of prediction, see, I don't know. I think I'm gonna go Little Woman. Now, I know JoJo won at SAG. I know JoJo won at BAFTA, beating Little Woman out in both. But I have this feeling that the Academy is going to try to give Greta her Oscar. Especially considering the fact that she was snubbed in director, as far as it's an all-white male feel, save for Bong Joon-ho. There's no females nominated this year, and Gerwig definitely had the capability of being nominated. She was nominated a lot for her last film. And even though JoJo's gaining the momentum, I have this feeling that with the lack of females nominated in a lot of categories, they might give Gerwig a win here to kind of somewhat make up for that. And listen, this could very well not happen. JoJo's definitely my number 2, and like if it happens, obviously I'm not going to be shocked. But I just have this feeling. I have this feeling that Little Woman is going to come up and get this win. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, whatever. Best original screenplay. We have Knives Out, Marriage Story, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. Okay, preference-wise, 1917, 5, Marriage Story 3, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood 4, Parasite 2, Knives Out 1. I kind of did that weird. I'm sorry, but yeah, because originally I was like, I think I'll put Marriage Story at 4, but I'm like, nah, I'll put it above Once Upon a Time. Knives Out, still my favorite screenplay of the year. Has no chance of winning. If it won, it would be a monumental upset. Like, I'm talking... It's only happened like 7 times in the history of the Academy where like an original screenplay winner was for a film that was not nominated in any other category. And it hasn't happened since like 56. So it's been quite a while. This award is between Once Upon a Time and Parasite. I'm leaning towards Parasite. WGA gave it to that. BAFTA gave it to that. Once Upon a Time seems like the momentum's slowing down for it, and I think since it's already getting its production design win, it's likely Pitt win, spoilers, and maybe even a couple other technical categories we might not be aware of. I don't think they'll need to award it in screenplay. And I think that Parasite is not going to go home with only one Oscar. I think it's going to go home with something else, and if there is a something else it does go home with, I think it's going to be original screenplay. So that is my prediction. Even though I prefer Knives Out, it's my second choice, so I'm not going to be upset. Supporting actress. We have Kathy Bates for Richard Jewell, Laura Dern for Marriage Story, Scarlett Johansson, Jojo Rabbit, Florence Pugh, Little Woman, and Margot Robbie for Bombshell. Okay. Preference-wise, performances. I'd go Laura Dern 5. I'd go Kathy Bates 4, Florence Pugh 3, Margot Robbie 2, Scarlett Johansson 1. Of these 5, I think Scarlett Johansson gives the best supporting actress performance. I'm kind of rooting for her to win. I think she should win. But it's going to go to Laura Dern. Laura Dern's won every award she needs to. There's nothing that gets me to even bat an eye that anyone else would win. Perhaps, maybe in like a weird universe they give it to Florence Pugh because they've been very well known to give it to up and coming rising stars, especially for actresses. They love rewarding Oscars to young actresses who are just getting like their career up and atoms, you know. And they've even done it with someone like Jennifer Lawrence, who won over other people that probably were more deserving, I guess. So I don't know. They've done it in the past before, so I can't quite say that there's not a chance that it happens, but I don't know. Supporting actor. We got Tom Hanks for Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Anthony Hopkins for Two Popes, Al Pacino Irishman, Joe Pesci Irishman, Brad Pitt Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Hopkins 5, Hanks 4, Brad Pitt 3, Pacino 2, Pesci 1. I think Pitt is going to win this category, though, hands down. I don't think that there's anyone else that could even really challenge him. And it's not even like a supporting actress where I could even see a Florence Pugh. Like, no. Like, I just think Pitt's winning this. I don't see any of these other 4 actors winning it over him. He's the youngest of the 5 at only 53, which is okay. It's just a bunch of old... It's old white men, the category, basically. I mean, Brad Pitt is, like, the least old, but he's still somewhat old. But yeah, he's definitely going to win this. I would probably prefer Pesci or Pacino, but that's just because I'm an Irishman stan, so I don't even, like, think that that's applicable to this. Pitt's going to win. Pretty easy right there. Best Actress. We have Cynthia Erivo for Harriet, Scarlett Johansson for Marriage Story, Charisse, is it Cerise, or is it Cerise Ronan? I do feel bad because I always mispronounce it. For Little Woman, Charlize Theron for Bombshell, and Renee Zellweger for Judy. All right. In terms of performance, probably give the Cynthia Erivo number 5, Charlize Theron number 4, Ronan number 3, Zellweger number 2, Scarlett Johansson number 1. Yes, I have Scarlett Johansson in number 1 in both actress and supporting actress. I can't see a world where that happens, but if it did, my entire life would like just be full of joy. But no, it's gonna go to Renee. Renee Zellweger's been winning like ever since Toronto, where this film debuted. Everyone was like, yeah, she's winning Best Actress, and everyone has been praising her performance. And listen, like, she gives a fantastic performance, and it's my second favorite out of these nominees. So she wins, I'm not going to be upset. I don't know. I feel upset because I feel like there are people that could have been nominated. Wow. I'm really tripping. Like, I'm not, like, talking about what could have been nominated in categories. Well, adapted, there's nothing else in adapted. Come on. Like, this year for adapted screenplays has been quite weak, I would say. Original, though, you could have given to Uncut Gems. You could have given it to Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Supporting actresses, there's Adele, what's her name? She's the supporting actress from Portrait of a Lady on Fire. She's really great. Supporting actor, Dafoe could have made it. Actress, I don't even know. what performances? Oh, there's actually a lot of performances, I guess, but I can't really think of any to come to mind right now. But yeah, actress, it's gonna go to Zellweger. Best actor. Pattinson should have been in this, obviously, but we're not even gonna get into like the rankings anymore. Actually, scratch that. Ranking wise, I'd probably go Banderas 5, Price 4, DiCaprio 3, Driver 2, Phoenix 1, which coincidentally probably was also the actual rankings of how they were nominated. Look, Joaquin Phoenix is going to win this. He's been maybe my favorite performance of the year since I saw Joker, and I'm just going to be really happy when I finally see him win his Oscar. So that's going to be definitely a good thing. Definitely a good thing for Joaquin. Director. We already know Eggers. We already know all the generic ones as far as what I would want to be. Director, though, we have Martin Scorsese for Irishman, Todd Phillips for Joker, Sam Mendes 1917, Quentin Tarantino Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Bong Joon-ho for Parasite. Okay, terms of rankings, preference-wise, I'd go Phillips 5, Tarantino 4, Mendes 3, Bong Joon-ho 2, and Scorsese number 1. I love The Irishman. I would love it if it won director here. Honestly, I would be okay if like Bong Joon-ho won too. Like I'm rooting for Bong Joon-ho, even though I think Scorsese should win, just because I would love to see him win the award. But I think it's going to Sam Mendes, 1917. He won DGA, he won Golden Globes, he won BAFTA. There's the only thing he didn't win was Critics' Choice, but he tied. So like he won, but he didn't. And also critics are not necessarily the most accurate judges of what the Academy would vote for. But it's going to be 1917. I think Mendes has just won too much to lose at this point, at least this award. What do I got for picture? I don't know. We got Ford v Ferrari, Irishman, Joker, Jojo Rabbit, Little Women, Marriage Story, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. Okay. Terms of personal preference, I'd probably put Little Women at 9. Number 8 would be Ford v Ferrari. 7 be Marriage Story. 6 Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. 5 Jojo Rabbit. 4 1917. 3 Joker. 2 Parasites. And number 1 is The Irishman. The Irishman, obviously, it's not my favorite film of the year, but it's in my top 10. And of all the nominated films, for Best Picture, it's the one I would most want to win. Although, even still, I kind of am rooting just for Parasite. Even though I think Irishman's a slightly better movie, like, if Parasite won, it'd be the first international film to ever win this category. Only 11 international films have ever been nominated for Best Picture, and it would be the first winner. That's history. But that's also the problem. Is that in my heart of hearts, I want Parasite to win. But my mind is telling me 1917. I had the slight inkling that I should change my vote. Like, just the thought, like, maybe Parasite could do it. And I still think Parasite can. If Parasite wins, I will be so happy to be wrong. But I would rather predict something to be right. Because I want to be right. I don't want to give myself false hope. Like, I don't want to predict it to win if I don't think it has the greatest chance to. And with 1917's PGA win, with its director wins, with its Golden Globe, 1917 just feels like the movie that is going to win picture this year. Especially with all the awards it's been acclaiming and all that stuff. So, yeah, that's really all I can say. There's not really much else about Best Picture race that hasn't already been said before. Obviously, Lighthouse, Uncut Gems, all that good stuff could have been in picture, but it's not. Can I also talk about A Hidden Life? I have not mentioned that once in any of the categories, but that's my favorite film of the year. And it got nowhere. It didn't even get cinematography. which it's fine. It's fine. I'm not upset about it. It never got any traction, so I never really anticipated it to be anywhere. But it just kind of sucks that it's not getting the recognition that I think it deserves. But hey, it is to me. I will be buying it on Blu-ray. I will be rewatching it. So I guess that's all that matters. All right. Holy shit. That was a lot. That was a lot to take in. As far as the Academy Awards, they are tomorrow. All of these predictions, by the way, are fucking final. I'm not changing any of these like last minute. I am posting this today, so it is official that these are going to be my picks. Wow, we covered a lot, guys. I did all my rankings. I talked about the Academy. I reviewed Birds of Prey. Originally, at the beginning of the video, I did mention that the Razzie Awards came out. I think I'm going to save that for a different episode later on, probably sometime next week, where I'll further discuss that because this episode is going to run close to 2 hours, probably. And I'll put timestamps in the description so you know what to pay attention to if you're really interested in certain things. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. This has been an interesting experience so far. I'm hoping that you're liking the content. Like and subscribe if you're interested in more stuff like this. Next week, I will obviously be having Academy Award results, Razzie Talks, as well as maybe a review of some new Netflix movie releases. I can't guarantee that that's going to happen, but we will see. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video, guys, and I hope you guys have a great day. I don't have an intro yet, so I guess my intro is just my I don't have an outro yet, so I guess that's just gonna have to suffice. So bye.